All right, we're out here with Lovie, and today I'm hoping we can condition a clicker. Perfect, and now that I actually have a clicker on me, what we're looking to do with the clicker is create an instinctual response. So with an instinctual response, it's instinct. The dog doesn't have to stop and think about it. It's something that their brain has hardwired them to just do. It's also called a conditioned response, and that's something you might be familiar with if you're familiar with classical conditioning, which is something that we hear about when we talk about Pavlov, who was that guy that rang a bell and fed dogs food. He was a scientist that needed to collect saliva from dogs. So if you're familiar with that and you have any background or history in knowing what that experiment was about, essentially what it boiled down to is that at some point, Pavlov was able to ring a bell, and the dogs associated that bell with food so much that even if there wasn't no food in the room, when they heard the bell, they'd begin to drool. And if you were able to ask those dogs, why do you drool? Like, the dogs would be like, I have no idea. I don't control this reaction at all. I don't have any choice. When I hear that sound, my brain tells my body to drool. So instead of creating a response where Lovie would start drooling, because that's not helpful, we're going to actually see if we can create the response of running over to us in a super motivated and enthusiastic way. So our goal is to capture this response of Lovie stopping everything that he's doing, running over to us to get a piece of food. So in order to make that a really conditioned instinctual response, we just need to be a little bit careful and mindful about how we time the sound of this clicker with the presentation of food from us. So again, because we're looking to create a very motivated response, I'm going to see if I can present the food in maybe even back up and try to get him sucked into me and make this a very exciting thing. So when I practice this at home, or when you practice this at home and you have his meal or some treats in your pouch, let's say, he most likely is going to be right here. Here I am, ready for food. So the first thing we're going to do is get some distance between us. So if I'm inside in the living room or in the hallway, in the kitchen, something like that, I can take a piece of his meal. I'm going to just toss it out. I'm going to wait for him to chew that piece of food. He's already inclined to come back to me, so I'm going to fire off my clicker, and I'm going to back up, and I'm going to feed a nice handful of his meal from me. I'm using treats right now, so I'm just going to give him one from me. But ideally, we're just using one piece of kind of food to get some distance. But when he comes over to us, he's getting a whole handful of his meal. And we just kind of repeat. So I'm going to take a piece and I'm going to toss it out. I'm going to wait for him to be done chewing at first, because if I try to click right now, he's just going to keep chewing his food over there. So I'm going to kind of get in his peripheral vision. And as soon as he sees me, I'm going to fire off my clicker, and I'm going to present that food like a landing target, and he should be running over to me. So right now, he's really only responding to the presentation of food and me backing up. But eventually what he's going to start to do is pair that sound that happens right before it with that really exciting thing where I show him food and he runs over and he eats it out of my hand. Nibble, nibble, nibble. Yay, perfect. Nom, 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 good boy. Okay, a couple of rules with the clicker. If you click, you must feed. So we're gonna take this progress as slow as we need to make sure that we don't have a lot of repetitions where we're clicking and he either doesn't respond, he's too distracted, because the next step to this would be to kind of start to add some distractions. Usually the first distraction that I like to do is change the environment, and I want to make sure that it's not too distracting. So just taking him out into the backyard on a long line, or have him drag a leash, is perfect. So he gets to sniffing, he checks out something in the environment, and then I'm going to randomly click, back up and feed. Yay, yum, num, 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 num. And I like to kind of give a general release word when I'm done with that. Okay, to kind of tell them we're all done with that. And I would repeat that every 10 minutes or so. The amount of time in between reps doesn't necessarily matter, but I don't want to do it too many times in a row. So if you decide this is how you're going to feed Lovie his dinner, however long that you want that to take. And again, you can be feeding him handfuls of his meal at a time, so that shouldn't take too terribly long. So right now he's checking out a smell. So I'm going to kind of get in his peripheral, because again, if I try to click right now and he's too invested in a smell or a distraction, I'm probably not going to get a response. There we go. Yay! Good job. Yay! Yum, num, 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 num. The second rule is that I'm not going to make him do anything in between the click and feeding. It's really important that we don't make him sit and we don't add extra time in between the click and getting food from me. There's no obedience involved in this part of in this exercise. We're really just trying to create a conditioned response to the clicker. And the way that we know that this is starting to become a conditioned response, see that time, that's actually a good rep to see, where as soon as I clicked, one of his friends, I think, bumped into their food or water dish in their crate, and it kind of made a loud noise over the clicker, and I don't think he heard it. In that case, if I click and he doesn't hear it or he blows it off or whatever, I'm just going to make some kissy sounds. I'm going to run backwards. I'm going to do whatever I can to kind of help save that rep, because I really want to make sure that I don't have a lot of instances where I'm clicking and I'm not making that response that I want happen. Yay. Good job. So when we know that it's conditioned, yay, we start to see a really almost knee-jerk response. When he hears that clicker, it's like an invisible string is pulling him backwards. And that's gonna be super helpful. So there are a ton of reasons why we want to condition a clicker this way. If you've ever used a clicker, traditionally, they're used as good reward markers, and that's not necessarily different from how we use it. We just kind of we go a little bit deeper. So we use like that really powerful power of an instinctual response to help pair some other obedience commands. Anything that we add to his response, like, so once he has a nice solid conditioned response to the clicker, anything that we add with the clicker, add the clicker to, will start to take on that response. So things like his name or a recall word, we can pair that with the clicker, and those things will start to have the same power. So he'll start to hear his name and run over to us to get food. He'll start to hear come or here and run over to us to get food. We even pair it with leash pressure. So when he starts to walk on the end of his leash and he starts to pull, he hits the end of his leash, we can pair that with the clicker. And so that creates the response of, I feel leash pressure, and I turn around and yield to us. So eventually we might not make it so that everything equals run to me to get food necessarily, but we can actually use the clicker to help create this response of orienting back to us, which is helpful for distractions, and again, leash pressure. So things that would kind of get your dog kind of sucked away from you, you can use the clicker to regain that engagement that you're looking for. Yay, good job. Nom, nom. So he's obviously doing really great with this. And we'll talk about the clicker a little bit more when we get together, because another thing that we use it for is to release our puppies from behavior. So I don't believe I've already sent you the online learning portions of this, so I'll go ahead and do that today for you. You can take a look at our markers. We'll have a clicker lesson as well, and he's already doing really good with food luring into sits and downs, so we'll start to add what we call the implied stays to that as well. Oh yeah, and I think, Alex, Lovie knows rollover. Isn't that funny? Good job. Yeah, so he's in that down position. Woo! I can start to use the clicker to release him out of those behaviors, and we'll talk about that, but he's just doing super great. He's having another fantastic day, meeting lots of new friends. Socially, he's doing superb. No concerns as far as meeting new dogs that I've seen. He's peeing outside. He's just really doing great. Good job.